Welcome to our webinar on conversion rate optimization. So you've likely heard this term. It's a hot marketing term, but what is it and what can it do for you? In this webinar, we'll be breaking it down into easy to understand terms and talking real strategies that you can implement to increase leads on your website. We're joined by one of our school clients who we worked with on a CRO project recently that resulted in a 69% increase in conversions on their homepage, as well as some great results on a couple of other key pages. So I'm joined by Allie McGill from Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine College in Berkeley. I'll refer to them as AIMC throughout. They're one of our post-secondary education clients, and Allie's the marketing director. She'll be speaking. We'll just sort of be having some dialogue throughout the webinar about her experience with the project, things that we worked on, the results that she has seen thanks to some CRO experiments. Welcome, Allie. Thank you so much for joining. This will be great having you here so that you can give your perspective on this pretty complex issue, but so important to businesses.
What's today?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's get started. We will cover what is CRO, why is it important. We'll go through a step-by-step guide to CRO, the experiment we designed for AIMC, and the results we achieved. And then we'll do some wrap-up and Q&A at the end. What is conversion rate optimization? Well, it's, in a nutshell, the process of increasing website visitors. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate through notes and let me just go back here. Sorry, guys. Okay. The process of increasing the percentage of website visitors on your site that convert into leads or paying customers. So in other words, getting someone to take the desired action on your website with the goal of that interaction resulting in profit for your business. We know that more and more companies are conducting business online, so optimizing.
That was 65 plus.
Oh, I think if you guys don't mind muting, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Kristen, if you look at the list of attendees, you can just hover over whoever is not muted and you can manually mute them real quick.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Let's see.
Looks like everybody's muted.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we know more and more companies are conducting business online, so optimizing your website is imperative. So when you improve your conversion rate, essentially you're acquiring more leads with the same amount of traffic to your website. And this webinar will focus on CRO, but I wouldn't be a good marketer if I didn't also mention that the most effective lead generation strategy encompasses both search engine optimization, or SEO, as well as CRO. They really go hand in hand. So while conversions may be your primary metric, you can't convert people unless you get them to your site. So any successful CRO strategy has to start with a strong SEO foundation. And if you want to learn more about SEO and how to get that strong foundation, check out our Oozle blog, and we do have some resources there for you that could be helpful. So before we get into the meat of the presentation, I wanted to go over a few definitions. I thought this might be helpful. The first that I'll reference is call to action, or CTA. This tells a user on your site what action you want them to take. A good CTA should really convey value to the user, shouldn't be overly salesy or spammy. So some examples of a CTA would be learn more, get more information, find out how, things like that. The transactions refer to the action people take when they click the CTA, so making an appointment or filling out a form to be contacted. Heat mapping is a tool used to record how users interact with your website. It can measure scrolls down the page, clicks on a page. Those things can be very helpful when you're trying to figure out where people are running into barriers on a page instead of converting. Heat mapping goes hand in hand with analytics. So that's Google Analytics. That allows you to dig into user behavior on your site and provides data on your most visited pages, how long a user stays on a page, how many people are converting on the page. And then the conversion funnel, which also may be referred to as the sales funnel or the marketing funnel, refers to the journey that a consumer takes from beginning to end. So from entering the website, or from finding an ad, entering the website, to converting into a lead. So now that we've covered what CRO is, let's go over why it's important. So CRO really narrows in on specific actions that users take or don't take on your website. Now, I imagine everyone's putting effort into getting people to their website. And if you're putting that effort in, you're putting marketing dollars out there, you're trying to attract users to the site, you want them to find the information that they need and ultimately take an action on your site or turn into leads. So because marketing is an experiment and businesses must evolve to meet the changing needs of the customer, you'll always have a place in the sales funnel where those users or prospective customers fall off and don't convert. So in CRO, this is where drivers, barriers, and hooks come in. So for example, say you're running a PPC ad or a pay-per-click ad on Google. You're running a Google ad, it's promoting a free guide on your website, everything you need to know about XYZ. That would be the driver. Now, if that user landed on the page expecting to be able to download the guide, but there was no clear instruction on how to do so, you're missing your call to action, that would be a barrier to that conversion. Conversely, if that user landed on the page and immediately saw a button that was very clear, said download your free guide, everything you need to know about XYZ, that would be your hook. So Allie, do you want to tell us a little bit about an example of this on your site maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, being in kind of the complementary medicine field, there are some kind of automatic user preferences we have to be aware of. They tend to be people that are skeptical of a very forthright sales strategy. So needing to sort of make sure that our website is full of content and drivers that are just kind of spiritually or medically interesting is really helpful. And then in terms of barriers, one that we discovered and we'll get into, I think, further in the conversation is our website has to also be geared towards a lot of different populations. We need to have a place on our website for alumni to go. We need to have a place on our website for our current students to go. And plus we need it to be admissions focused, right? So in setting up that website, we kind of lost the clear call to action for people arriving for that admissions process, right? So that's something that I know comes up a bit later. And then the hooks is just that it's kind of this cool thing, right? Acupuncture and herbal medicine. So the more we can focus on, you know, all the potential there on the website, the more people seem to be invested.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great insight. All right. So how do you find your conversion rate? We've got a formula here. So the first thing you'll want to do is make sure that you have Google Analytics set up on your website. There's some tracking code that you can get to put into the code of your website to make sure that you're able to collect user data when they're on your site. So you'll want to go into Google Analytics and identify your key pages that you want to start with. So I recommend identifying maybe your most visited pages, select one or a few of them to start, and then you can get testing. So you'll find the number of conversions on that page. So again, this is going to vary by business. For Allie, when we're looking at admissions, we were looking specifically at form fill. So a conversion was a lead filling out a form. So you'll identify what you want to measure find the number of conversions in a given period of time, say that's 10. You'll look at the number of users that visited that page in that same period of time. That might be 200 people. So of those 200 people, 10 filled out a lead form. That means you had a 5% conversion rate. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you double leads on that page and you had 20 people convert or fill out a lead form out of 200 visitors, that means your conversion rate is 10%. So that's how you that will help you establish your baseline. And once you've calculated your conversion rate on a page, you have your starting point. Now, what's important to remember is that there's no industry benchmark to reference for what a good conversion rate is. Some businesses report a 1% conversion rate, some report a 4% conversion rate, but most businesses really don't disclose that. It's something that they keep internal. So the best thing for a business to do is benchmark against themselves. So the goal of CRO is really to find out what's working for you and your audience and what's not working, and then try to increase your conversion rate from there. Okay, so this is what we did in partnership with AIMC and the results we got. Before I get into that, I just wanted to give a quick tip, which is before you get started and you start designing your experiment, it's good to outline a framework. So this will just help you get organized. So choose an objective. What are you testing? And then you'll want to determine the hypothesis that you're testing. So that's a provable statement. And then determine your measure for success. So what will you measure to determine if your experiment was successful? So here's a simple example that we used for AIMC. Our objective, increase the conversion rate on the homepage. Hypothesis, if we make the homepage form stand out more, we will increase conversions. And then the measure of success was increased conversion rate on the homepage. So we'll go into the steps in more detail coming up. So step one, establish your baseline. We do talk about this a lot at Oozle, and it's the reason we have an audit and analysis phase for new clients. You don't know where to go or what to fix if you don't know where you're starting. So you really need to establish a baseline to measure your results against. So you'll want to identify your audience. You'll figure out how people are getting to the page that you're testing and what they're hoping to find there. This is where you can send out surveys or polls. Let people tell you in their own words what the pain points are. You'll want to talk with boots on the ground, like your admissions representatives or your sales staff, to understand the feedback that they're getting. Identify what pages are most visited, like we talked about in Google Analytics, so that you know the type of information people are most often looking for on your website. And ask yourself, are those the pages you would expect? Is there a place for them to convert on those pages? And then calculate your current conversion rate on the pages identified. So when we were establishing our baseline for AIMC, we definitely looked at Google Analytics. We identified top visited pages, and in talking with Allie and her team, really tried to figure out where the pieces were most important in a prospective student's research journey when they were trying to determine if they wanted to go to AIMC. So Allie, I'll open it up to you if you want to talk a little bit more about what that process looked like and working with your team to establish our baseline.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, we tried to build out our website to have a lot of story about us, and our school is very heavy on community, and we have this shared kitchen communal space that's always full of people. Obviously not right now, but pre-COVID it was. So I think originally the idea of the website to reflect that community was really strong, but it turned out, of course, that people just really need to know what's the content they're going to get out of this program. How do I apply? What does that process look like? What requirements are there? So yeah, learning from you guys, that our idea of what was important about our brand is actually not totally in line with what people are looking for. Was really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so next you want to start gathering your data. So this is where the heat mapping comes in. And when you think of CRO, I think a lot of people often think of heat mapping. This is probably something you've heard of. There are a variety of tools out there. Some are free, some are paid that you can use. We use a tool called Hotjar for our heat mapping. And I think it's just really intuitive. It's free to use on up to 3 pages. So you can choose 3 pages that you want to install the heat mapping on. And then each of those 3 pages, you can gather data up to 10,000 views before you have to pay for a service. And if you do want to, look at more pages than the 3, the plans are really reasonable if you do move into a paid plan. But Crazy Egg is another great tool I've heard great things about. Google Optimize is another that you can look into. But whichever tool you go with, heat mapping is just a really great way to see how people are navigating your site. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation, you can see how far down the page they're scrolling. If you have some really important content that you're trying to get across and it's at the bottom of the page, heat mapping will tell you how many people are getting there. Maybe only 10% of people that land on that page are getting down to the bottom to see that content. One thing about heat mapping is that you do want to let it run as long as possible to gather as much data as possible. So, you might install heat mapping on your pages and then have to wait 3 to 4 months before you even pull that data and start looking at the results. So it does take a little bit of patience when you decide to sign on for a project like this, especially because I know as a business owner or working in marketing, you're like, oh, I've got this great idea. I really think this will help, boost leads on this page, but I'm going to hold off and let my heat mapping run. And that's hard to do. But sometimes it can pay off if you just let that data gather and see where it gets you. This would also be where you collect data from any surveys that you sent out. So after letting your heat mapping run for a few months, you get to do the fun part, which is analyzing the data. In this step, you'll come up with your hypotheses to test. So you'll want to think about your customer demographic, reference the results of the survey, look through the heat mapping to identify areas for improvement. Some things to consider and that we looked at for the experiment with AIMC were people filling out the form on the home page, and if not, why? Were they clicking through to other key pages? Were they clicking on the call to action buttons? Why or why not? Were people leaving the page before scrolling to important information? So when we were forming our hypotheses with AIMC, we did take into account industry experience that we have as an agency to make some recommendations. But again, what works on one website might not work on another. So it was sort of, part of it was experience, but part of it was guesswork. So, some of the things we recommended, like with AIMC, was to change the color of the form and the color of the button. So Allie, do you want to talk a little bit about your reaction when we made those recommendations to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at the time working just in an assistant role on website projects. And so I went to, work on something on the website, and I saw the color of the button was now yellow, which is totally not a brand color for us. And I reached out to my supervisor and was like, something's wrong with our website. Like, somebody did something. It wasn't me, I swear. And I kind of had like a knee-jerk reaction. And then she explained it was part of this experimental phase, and I won't do too big of a spoiler, but it went well.
Yeah. It's not always what you think. You might think, well, that's not going to make a difference, or that's going to make people convert less. But again, it's an experiment, and that's part of the fun, but it also can be scary because you're making changes to your website. That's a big deal. But if you do it in a way that's thoughtful, and you're tracking the results, then even if you don't get positive results and it's not what you expected, that's okay, because at least, you know, that's, you know, not succeeding in one of these tests is good information as well. So what we did is, so our primary hypotheses for AIMC, we wanted to increase the conversion rate on the homepage by making the form stand out, increase mobile traffic by implementing a responsive site, and increase the number of visitors to key pages through effective internal links. So here's sort of the tests that we set up. And I have some screenshots that I can show you a little bit later. We redesigned the subheader form, made the colors stand out a little bit more. We fixed the responsive design of the navigation bar because it wasn't mobile responsive. And then we changed the order of some buttons on the Masters of Science in Oriental Medicine page, which was the program page that we chose to focus on. Now, after we set up our tests, we had to wait another 3 to 4 months and let the heat mapping run again. So again, this is where patience comes in. We pulled the data, and I'm excited to show you guys the results, but I just wanted to reiterate, it's part experiment. In our study, our hypotheses proved correct and we saw positive results. It's not always the case. There will be times where you've decreased conversions, but you can revert your website back and try again if you don't necessarily get the results you're hoping for. So the homepage. Here you can see the before and after of the homepage form, the subheader form, under the Get Info. So you can see we had this light green color with the blue button. These are their branding colors. Visually pleasing, but what we thought was, well, hey, let's make this stand out a little bit more. So we changed the background of the form to blue, changed the button to yellow, which is what Allie was mentioning before. And form fills on this page during the second round of heat mapping increased 69.8%. Now I would say like homepage conversions is probably one of the biggest places to focus on, right, Allie? Like, would you say you get the majority of your leads from your homepage?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 3 forms that we think of as like our lead forms. One is directly from PPC to our kind of more info page. And then on every page, you can see in the top right corner, there's a button that says contact admissions, and that's always on the pages. But the home page is, yeah, definitely that main place. And if someone managed to fill that out, then they'll kind of get to that contact admissions button later.
Yeah, so this was a big one. This was a big win. And up at the top of the before shot, you can see this was the menu when it was not mobile responsive. And then after, you can see, I think I cut off the screenshot actually, but we just saw like a nice clean bar to represent the menu by making that page mobile responsive. Okay, so next we wanted to focus on the MSOM page, the Masters of Science in Oriental Medicine. This page had a lot of really great information, but we also knew that these other pages, we wanted to send people to a couple other key pages for additional helpful information. So we reordered the buttons and the calls to action to increase visits to these other key pages. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that, Allie?
Yeah, and I'll mention too, it looks like you changed the color. So all of the really important calls to action on our website all at once kind of became this yellow color that, again, I was at first alarmed by, but I think was a really great choice to literally highlight them. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't worked with heat mapping before, it might not be that clear when you look at this. It's the buttons are all the same. I don't even think we changed the text of them really.
We just changed the order. Yeah,
just in a different order, so you can see even the ones that weren't getting a lot of clicks before, further down the line, they're somehow getting more clicks now that they're even just in a different order.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting to see how people behave. Yeah, we changed course sequence, curriculum, how to apply, and more about AIMC became curriculum first, how to apply, course sequence, and more about AIMC. And yeah, like Ali mentioned, you can see this. So heat mapping, this color palette here shows clicks. So this is the before. Curriculum was getting the most clicks. And this is the after. Curriculum was moved to the first spot. Still the most clicked button, the red being, you know, more clicks, and the further out you go, you get to the blue, which is fewer clicks. But yeah, how to apply, the clicks to the how to apply button increased significantly, in fact, 200%. And curriculum click-throughs increased by 32%. So those are really key pages, and we really wanted to make sure people were getting there. So so that was a good move, I think, to make sure people were staying on the site and getting to these other pages. All right, so I mentioned the responsive design. This is the last result that I'll go over, but if you haven't realized how important mobile responsiveness is yet, this hopefully will drive it home for you. It's really important that you work with your web team to make the site mobile friendly, because increasingly people are using their phones to do their business, to fill out forms, to get information. So it's really, really important that your site is optimized. So by making the site responsive, we increased conversions across the 3 pages that we've talked about today for AIMC by 81.87%. So if every lead means potential profit for your business, you can't afford not to get those leads. So an 81% increase in leads across those 3 pages is really significant, because we just made that experience better for people when they were on their phones. I don't know if you have any input, Ali, on that one.
Yeah, I mean, especially now that we're running more social media ads, I know that people are using social media mostly on their phones, and as well as we're running more email marketing. So without that mobile responsiveness, I can't really imagine how well those ads would be serving us, you know?
Yeah, great. Yeah, so before the changes, we had 0.58% converting from mobile. And then after we updated the site to be responsive, we had 1.06% people converting on mobile. So big increase there, really great to see. And yeah, so like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, your website can make or break a business. It's important to pay attention to it. CRO can be an intimidating process. You can sort of go down a rabbit hole. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot of data to look through. Your website has a lot of pages. So repeat as necessary. Just make sure you start with some really clear goals and know where you want to go. So here are the steps that we went over. Establish your baseline, gather your data, form your hypotheses, set up your tests, analyze your results, and then repeat. Yeah, anything to add, Ali?
No, I mean, I guess I wanted to make sure to speak to the fact that, like, really, we lean on you guys on Oozle for a lot of that analysis piece and the heat mapping and kind of understanding what's happening with our website. And then when we have an idea over here about, like, okay, we want maybe to build out a better page for our clinic patients, or, you know, our alumni or whomever, we can kind of work in tandem and in partnership with you guys, which I think is unique. So if you're thinking about doing this process, I would recommend talking to your Oozle folks about, you know, the things that are going to be key for you in doing so.
Thank you. Yeah, it really has to be a partnership. Like, everything you do in marketing should be intentional. And I know that's not always the case for some companies. So it should be, and it really should be a partnership if you work with an agency. And if you're doing this yourself internally, making sure that you're working with your different teams that touch that process. So making sure marketing's working with admissions, making sure everyone's on the same page and getting the best results possible. So general best practices, I've said this a couple times, be patient. Gathering data takes time, but the more you collect, the better off you'll be. You'll be able to make the right decisions based on real data and come up with those hypotheses that you can test that you think will really move the needle. Be specific with your goals, your objectives, intentional with your testing. Keep clear documentation. So, make sure you're taking screenshots. Make sure you know the before and after, what the page looked like before and after. Keep those conversion rates before and after, just in case you ever need to go back. You're not reinventing the wheel, basically. You want to know where you started and where you ended up, and then you can go forward from there. And then, just monitor your conversion rates over time. Marketing's not set it and forget it. You have to sort of keep evolving. Your demographics may change, your technology may advance, your goals and offerings may change. In fact, the life of a website is now only 3 years. So your website could potentially be outdated in 3 years. That's crazy. It's just an always changing industry. And so if you're testing and optimizing though, and making those changes, like Allie is, Allie and I are always talking about tweaks we can make, even if we're not running heat mapping, knowing what we know from the heat mapping and the experiments we have done, we're able to say, okay, well, maybe we can make this a little bit more clear on this page, just based on what we know. But, we are continuing to run heat maps and test important pages. So it's an ongoing process. All right, and so to recap our steps, establish your baseline, gather your data, form your hypotheses, set up the tests, analyze your results. Our hard work paid off when Ellie and I worked together on this experiment. If you put the time and the effort into CRO, you're bound to see it pay off for you as well. And who doesn't want more leads? Leads equals profit. So if you'd like to help increase conversions from your website, we can help. You can email Cole Ashby. His email's there on the screen. He can do a free website consultation for you. Reach out and see how we can help. Allie, do you have anything to add as we wrap up?
No, not that I can think of. This was really fun. And I guess I would say if anyone has any questions, for me, I'm certainly available.
Yeah, I can put your email in the chat if you're good with that.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, I'll have to pull it up. Or I don't know if you're able to put it in the chat.
I can put it in the chat.
All right, so with that, I'm going to open it up to some Q&A. We covered a lot, and I hope that was helpful, but I would love to hear what you guys have for questions. Happy to answer anything for you. And there's Allie's email. Thank you. Thanks for offering to answer any questions for anyone. That's really helpful. And thanks for being here. It's nice to get your perspective. I mean, I think you spoke to sort of how this can be, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it can be a lengthy and an overwhelming process sometimes, right?
Yeah, looking at the data about our website, I find really overwhelming. So I'm actually very grateful for your help to sort through and figure out what it all means.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to the funny, just a brief anecdote of the nature of running experiments with your marketing, because I shared this with you yesterday. In our email marketing to some of our prospective students, a few days ago, I tried a new subject line. We usually send the same one every month about our open houses. And so I just tried one that was like, last open house before priority applications are due, you know, thinking like, oh, I'll get people interested because there's a time crunch. And the nature of our population is that it got less opens than any of our others that are way more casual and relaxed, and you're welcome to join us if you want to. So yeah, it's so funny what you never know what your experiment's going to yield, but
Yeah.
it's helpful data. It's helpful information now to know that's not the people that we're talking to.
Yeah, and what's funny is that if you tried that again in a year, you could have a totally different reaction. You just never know.
Yeah.
So anyone that's on the call, I'm curious to hear if any of you have like instincts about something maybe on your website, on a program page, that you've been thinking about changing the call to action or changing the layout, that you think might help with conversions on that page. Is there anything you see on your website that you're like, I thought somebody was going to say something, but no. All right. Well, I don't see any questions. So with that, this was being recorded, so there will be a recording of this up on our blog, probably next week sometime, I would say. If you know someone that you think could benefit from running their own CRO experiment, feel free to pass this on to them. I hope that I gave you some helpful tips, and yeah, reach out to our team if you're interested in learning more. And thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it.